สู่งาน Inmode Family Thailand by AMN. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Pacharanan Intaviang. It is a great honor to welcome all of you to Inmode Family Thailand by AMN. First of all, we proudly present you to watch video of AMN and Inmode activities. Next, may I invite Mr. Sarathun Kritikakun, Assistant Managing Director of AMN, for opening our event tonight.
ครับสวัสดีครับคุณหมอทุกท่านครับ Welcome to Inmode Family Thailand by AMN เปลี่ยนหน้ายับให้กับหมอเฟียสเองครับ Well, today, after unprecedented time, this is the first time we do the executive workshop. And I would like to tell you about the schedule for today. We will get some appreciate to come for Iron Man for Israel, Mr. Moshe. He will talk with you about the future of Inmode product. And you will confident for this product for sure. And second, you will enjoy for the Captain America from Canada, Mr. Steve Mulholland, Dr. Steve Mulholland from Canada. He will talk with you. He will lecture with you for the Inmode product. You can ask him many questions and he can answer you for sure. And the third thing, you will see Dr. Paul, Dr. Strength from Australia. He will talk with you about the mini FX for V-shape. And second, and the fourth is you will enjoy for the award. And you will see who will get award for today. And the last thing, you will enjoy for the lucky draw. After that, we will dinner together. So now I would like to say again, welcome to Inmode Family Thailand by AMN เปลี่ยนหน้ายับให้กับหมอเฟียสเองครับขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Mr. Sarathun. And next, may I introduce our other partner, Mr. Moshe Misari, co-founder and has been Inmode Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board of Directors, with today's topic, Direction of Inmode in the future. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Moshe Misari.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. I know Sarathun and AMA for, I would say, more than 20 years. And we've been working together, and we're grading together, and we're growing together. It's a pleasure to be here to see so many people in this conference today. I'm sure that all of you also are invited to the booth of Inmode in the IMCA show. We're showing some new stuff there, so you're all invited. Dr. Steve Mulholland, who is with us also already 20 years, from 2020, from 2000 until 2022. We've been working together. I'm glad he's here. He will give you some, in 1 hour, we'll cover all the product of Inmode, so you'll get acquainted with the existing and the future product. I have prepared a relatively short presentation to show you who we are, who is the team of Inmode, what do we do, and a little bit about our technology, our network around the world, so you'll know that you are part of a big family, the biggest company in the industry of medical aesthetic. We're this year the #1 as far as revenue and profit, and we continue to grow much faster than anybody else. We will continue to develop at least 1 or 2 platforms every year, so we are all enjoy the industry and we're all enjoying working together. Let me start with this. This is something that we did recently, and it's look nice. Good. Thank you, thank you. That's interesting. We decided to do this video in order to explain how difficult it is to design a system like Inmode design. Every system has close to 3,000 components, and every system contains of several technologies: laser, IPL, RF, EMS. All together, we are combining all their energies together in order to get the maximum efficacy and the maximum clinical results. So what I would like now is to introduce you to the team, so you'll know who is the team of Inmode. This is Tel Aviv. If you haven't been in Tel Aviv, you're invited. You know, at the end of the day, the company, it's all about people. We have the best engineering and R&D group in the industry. And you know, one thing I wanted to tell you, from the first day I started this company, more than 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, we did not take even not $1 profit out of the company. All the money that we make goes back to R&D, marketing, development, service, customer service, etc. We're here for a long time. We're here to stay. And therefore, for the last 13 years, we continue to develop, we continue to invest all of our profit back into the company. We're not allocating any dividend or any profit to the shareholders. It's all about the team. It's all about the customers. This is what we care, and this is what we do. We develop special technologies. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them. We develop RFAL, radio frequency assisted lipolysis. We developed the first fractional RF, unlike microneedling. We're not microneedling. Morpheus is a real fractional RF. And I'm sure that if you want to know the difference, we will help you to understand the difference. And this is why Morpheus today is the #1 product around the world in all kind of aesthetic. We develop all typical bipolar RF technology for tightening, for fat killing. We develop hand-free devices. And in addition, today, we also develop laser and IPL. But laser and IPL, today, our laser and IPL are totally different than all the competitors, because we've been in this industry for many years. We know how to develop what is the best and how to do it much better than others. Out of these technologies, we develop 8 different platforms for different indication, all the way from hair removal and pigmentation and facial, all the way to surgical, all the way to face and body reshaping. No other company in the industry has such portfolio, which cover almost all the disciplines and much more than anybody else. And we will continue to develop. We continue to bring to the market more and more product. We're now selling in 80 countries. 80 countries around the world are customers of Inmode. We have subsidiaries in several countries in Europe, in Asia, in North America, Canada, US, everything, all the manufacturing and all the R&D in Israel. Altogether, the company today, it's about 430, 450 people, plus around 200 people in the manufacturing facility. So we're growing. We started 13 years ago only with me, and today we're family. We're a family of, all together with the manufacturing team, around 600 people, selling in 80 countries. We're basically traveling all over the world. We have distributors in almost every country. We train them. We try to come up with new product, and we develop it all the time. We have 2 manufacturing facilities, very high-grade manufacturing facility, because we care about quality. Quality is important for us. We want every product that goes out to the market from the manufacturing facility to be the highest medical grade quality. And therefore, we double the capacity of the manufacturing in order to make sure that even in a time like the COVID, with all the supply chain problem, we deliver every system within 10 days of order. So we continue to invest in manufacturing. We continue to make sure that we will have the highest quality of manufacturing with a medical grade that will satisfy everybody. I don't know if you know, but we got almost every prize around the world. All the magazines, all the organizations that actually deal with medical aesthetic have awarded Inmode with the highest prize. And we continue to get prizes in every congress and every event that we're participating. That's the most important. we spend a lot of money to do studies. We have over 80 papers published in a peer-review magazine on almost every technology, every new technology and every existing technology. We continue to upgrade, we continue to develop, we continue to make it better, and we make study to create protocols and to share the protocols with all of our customers, with all the doctors that are using it. And this is something that we do all the time. In any given time, we have about 15 studies running everywhere in the world. And we're doing it in a very professional way, so we will be able to publish. And that's the result of it. So whenever you need any paper, any article, professional, medical article that you want to read, you want to understand what other doctors, please contact Saratun or the team here, and they will give you everything. This is how we're growing. We started in 2016 when we get the first FDA. We started to sell, and last year we did $358 million of revenue, and this year we will cross $450 million in revenue. So by far, we're the most successful, and we're the most profitable, and we're the most and the biggest company in the entire medical aesthetic or surgical medical industry. By the way, last year, we have developed a resource center. The resource center, it's very important because all the protocols, all the guidelines, all the user manuals, all the articles, all the publication that we do, all the marketing material that we generate, all the content is stored in one resource center. Everyone in the world, every representative of Inmode has an access to the resource center. And you are invited, I'm inviting you to talk with the team here and to ask for marketing material, for articles on any technology that you want to read more, you want to see how other doctors are doing, what kind of protocol they're implementing. That's important. So we have a very sophisticated resource center that will serve all the customers around the world, including doctors of all kind, and therefore, please feel free. Doesn't cost money. Any document or anything that you want in order to improve your treatment, in order to improve your protocols, guidance, and set, contact, you'll get it. 3 new products we brought to the market. One is the Empower. The Empower is for aesthetic gynecology, for all kind of treatment for women, SUI, and pelvic floor restoration. We develop a system with 4 modalities, which call Empower, which we're introducing right now in Asia, already introduced in the United States, already approved by the FDA with a very success. We sold 300 of those systems for women health from the beginning of this year until today in the United States and Canada. So this is the first time we bring this product to Asia, and I encourage all of you to ask all the questions and to make sure that you understand that. Very interesting product. The second product that we bring is the Transform. Transform, it's a hand-free device for body treatment. It's contain RF combined with EMS with 6 separate hand pieces that can treat any part of the body very successfully for tightening, for cellulite, for fat killing, for circumferential reduction. The Transform is becoming the #1 hand-free device in the world today. So this is another product that we bring to the market right now. And the third one is called iForma. It's like a Forma, but a small spot size for periorbital wrinkles, for other area, including dry eye, and treating the upper and the lower lid. This is another product that we bring right now to the market. Very important. It's a complementary product to the format that you're using a lot. That's something also that we will bring to the market this year. What we're planning to do in the future? In the future, we want to expand aesthetic into wellness. And this is the reason why we went to the women health, to treat women with aesthetic gynecology, but also with some area that will improve quality of life, like SUI, like pelvic floor restoration after pregnancy. Then we are developing product for ENT, for snoring, for sleep apnea. We develop product for erection dysfunction, for male. We're developing several technologies on several indications that will improve the quality of life of people. And this is something that also aesthetic doctors can do. We bring it with the same technology like we do aesthetics. We take it into the wellness area, into additional, I would say, medical discipline that will improve the life and improve the quality of life of many people that wants to live better. This is the goal. This is the objective. This is the mission statement of Inmode for the next 3 to 4 years. That's it. I told you it's going to be short. I can talk forever. Some people knows me, but I don't want to take the time from the other doctor to present today. Any questions that you have, I'll be here until Sunday. I'll be in the conference, so feel free and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moshe. All right, on this occasion, may I introduce our honor moderator, Dr. Ajima Suwanjinda. She is dermatologist and dermatologic surgeon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ajima Suwanjinda.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm very happy to be here and very happy to, see my old friends. And Moshe, you're a genius, and you're a genius. And Dr. Han, I'm gonna waiting for you if you're another, genius family. But they are, having, I think it's the most amazing machine, technology that I know, and I fell in love with your machine. In the first time that I do it, including I amazed your result. That's why I was here today, and I canceled all the other meetings just to be here with all of you. Yes. So we are going to have our first sessions, first lectures by Dr. Stephen Mulholland. He's I don't think that you need introductions because everybody in the room must know you. He's a certified American Board of Plastic Surgery, and he also do fellowship in otolaryngology, head and neck oncology. That's also your work, I believe. And in the meantime, he also one of the Canadians' most sought after plastic surgeons. I think that's the special about him. He's always treat patients by combining art and science. I think it's really important, That's why he become the top plastic surgeon in Canada. He will actually share with all of us today how he do it. And in his lecture, now he will talk about the Inmode products in terms of overview. Thank you.
Thank you Is this on? Check, check, check. Can you hear me okay? Check, check, check. I don't think this is on. Don't think so. We tested it earlier. Check, check, check. I can go to this one if it's not working. Tell you what, we'll adapt. Let me give you this back. That's not working. Let's use this one, this is fine. I'll use this one, not a problem. Yeah, no problem. Okay, sorry about that, little technical glitch. Fortunately, you don't have that with Inmode technology. Why don't we start with this video? I'm just going to play this short video, and then we're going to jump right in. Okay, you turn the lights down a little bit at the front. Plug in the audio. There was audio here before. No? Do you have an audio cable? Audio. No audio. Okay, tell you what. Okay, let's forget that. Okay, was asked to talk about Inmode, about the journey towards a minimally invasive opportunity that virtually every practitioner, if you inject soft tissue fillers and toxins, can offer. Again, disclosures, as any speaker should do. I've had consulting agreements over the years with virtually every one of these companies, and I always try to combine products that work best for me in my practice, as you all do. I took a photo of this just before we started. It was 2011. I was here in Bangkok, and we were launching what was then called Invasix. Very scary sounding name, Invasix. Sounds scary. Became Inmode when we had external opportunities and devices. And some of you in Thailand have been doing this treatment, this radio frequency assisted lipocoagulation for 11 or 12 years. Talk about innovation. I'm going to take you through a journey of how I see Inmode working, why it works, and this is just to sit back and listen and hopefully enjoy. A little bit different. It works now? Well, there you go. Okay. Well done. So a little bit different than Mr. Mizrahi outlined. I look at Inmode a little bit differently. I look at it as a constellation of people, and he's absolutely right. It's always the people. But it's really the vision of what those people wanted to achieve and how they achieved it. And in sharing that story, you'll understand. Check, check, check. Is that good? Excellent. Well done. Very good. How this was actually came to be. This was a company that had a vision from the very first part of their journey. And the vision was to look at surgery that me as a plastic surgeon would do: excisional, blepharoplasty, facelift, arm lift, thigh lift, tummy tuck, and have an applicator that delivered a non-excisional solution. Now that solution's never going to be as good as a scalpel. But many, many of your patients, they don't want a scalpel. They just want something that's good, that can be done in the fewest amount of treatments with very little downtime. It doesn't have to be as good as facelift, but it has to have outcome that's real. And that was their vision, to have a scarless, non-excisional solution. And now if I look at this company 12 years later, on the left-hand side is the American Society of Plastic Surgery top procedures. On the right-hand side are all the Inmode applicators that can serve to offer a physician, through an applicator, a non-excisional experience. From body tight, face tight, AccuTight, and now externally. And as we'll see, a lot of these patients in North America are driven to physicians that offer a non-surgical solution. Some may get a facelift. Many would rather have a non-excisional solution. And Inmode is the energy-based company that provides that opportunity. Two simple patents, one internal, body tight, and one external that became the Morpheus, have driven our ability inside out and outside in to offer this radio frequency assisted lipocoagulation using the FSN, fibroseptal network, and the dermis. Those two patents have led to the workstation that you see on the screen, the workstations that are available, depending on the country, throughout the world. The company has become the largest aesthetic electrosurgical company for a reason. The stuff works. It may not be the least expensive. There's lots of cheap companies at meetings like this, but the stuff works and patients come back. Worldwide distribution and opportunity and sales. Moshe's slide kind of underestimated. It also has indirect throughout Russia, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Australasia. Company believes in R&D and science and education. Well over 40 articles just on RFAL alone. So I would say Inmode is not the best marketing company, but they don't need to be. They make good stuff, and we doctors and patients typically now on social do the marketing. I've managed and operated a private surgery center through what I would call 5 downturn economies. Each of those downturn economies, and we may be heading towards one again, has been driven by products that work. The downturn economy has never really existed in my business. It's grown single or double digits year over year, even in these times. The wallet share for your patient gets a bit smaller. The procedures they want are a bit different, but they all still want to look good. And so lipstick sales always go up in a downturn economy. So do aesthetic procedures. We may not be recession resilient or proof. We're not recession proof, but we're certainly recession resilient. But you need to have the right technology. Now, I've been in aesthetic practice 25 years. When I look at this 25 years, we've gone from pretty much equal non-excisional and excisional, non-excisional in purple, excisional in blue. 20 years later, plastic surgery's doubled. But the non-excisional's gone up over 1,000%. That tremendous growth has been driven by companies like Allergan, companies, products like Juvederm and Restylane, and energy-based companies, particularly in the last 5 years, companies like Inmode. It's now in America $16 billion. Of that $16 billion, what used to be 50% excisional is now 18% excisional. 82% is now non-excisional. That's where the consumers typically are going to explore with you first. If you look at the last 20 years, it's gone from a lot of surgical in blue to less surgical and more non-surgical. And if you look at the large segments, toxin, anti-aging energy, body energy, and fillers and cellulite and hair removal. Those are the large chunks of the pie. You can look at the top 10 ways your non-excisional practice generates income for your business. Or a 4-legged chair, injectable toxin and fillers, energy-based devices, and some skincare. The question then becomes what kind of energy-based device you're going to bring to your practice and your patient that's going to attract them to your practice, bring their friends, and have them come back over and over again. The last 5 years in America, the sales of skin tightening technology, either under or over the skin, that tightens the skin, shrinks the fat, and now provides muscle hypertrophy, have been the top sellers. Inmode has recognized this because their vision was always to be a non-excisional option for women who don't want excision, but want something better than we typically offered. And that's where Inmode has created an entire, what in America we'll call the gap opportunity, the gap between big surgery and a knife and non-invasive. And so the right product and the right company at the right time really is where the envisioning team of Inmode has been and continues to be. Where are consumers going to look for offerings? And we're going to be the non-excisional solution. And that has fueled the growth selectively and prospectively for 2 decades. Innovation. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to walk you through a journey of where things started with BodyTite. And whether you ever do BodyTite, FaceTite, AccuTite, you'll understand better Morpheus and the hands-free temperature, contact, impedance controlled technology. Because if you can control heat, you control the solution. Everything is going to work by selective, controlled, focused heating. The problem is that when you take away the support structure, either through weight loss, age, or bariatric medicine, the skin needs to match the new contour or you're going to have really unattractive loose skin. What Inmode solves is how to change fat and contour or how to enhance the cutaneous environment through contraction. So if you ask me, who is Inmode? Originally it was the Body Tight company. Out of Body Tight, everything else in the RF area of their offering has flowed. Optical, Dr. Crendel really invented IPL. They have a great optical solution. Hair removal, they launched the light shear and diodes. So they know optical very well. That goes back to their early days in the 90s with ESC and Luminous. I'm going to focus on RF. Bipolar radio frequency controlled contraction. A positive electrode and a negative electrode moving in tandem or statically in tandem. RF flows from the positive to the negative. And in between on this journey, 6 things are measured 1,000 times a second, every millisecond, to ensure optimal safety and optimal therapeutic outcome. A couple of workstations that are very, very popular. The Body Tight workstation, which you get the Body Tight applicator, the Face Tight, the AccuTight, and the Morpheus. And then the Embrace workstation, which drives and powers the Face Tight, AccuTight, and Morpheus. The differentiator being Body Tight. If you're a physician that does want to offer big areas and you want to focus on small areas, then the Embrace RF makes more sense. The Embrace RF is great for small zones, face and body, and non-aspirating practices, non-liposuction practices. This is supported by 4 books that I've written specifically on Inmode technology, the non-invasive applicators, the internal applicators, coordinating injectable RF skin tightening, which I'm going to talk about today, together with sutures, fillers, and toxins. And all these are supported by webinars that support and videos that support. As Moshe talked about, this company is all about supporting the doctor to get the best outcome. Radio frequency, it's high frequency electrical current. 1 million cycles per second. Very long wavelength electromagnetic energy. It's indiscriminate. As RF flows from positive to negative and back, it oscillates molecules. It doesn't care what color your skin is. It doesn't care which molecule. Everything gets oscillated 1 million times a second. That intermolecular motion creates heat. And the heat is indiscriminate, and it'll go up very, very quickly and cause a thermal injury unless the company knows how to harness that power. Controlling heat becomes the secret sauce of Inmode's success. Nobody controls heat better than Inmode. 1,000 times a second, every millisecond, Inmode will measure contact, external temperature, internal temperature, which you get to set, the rate of rise of temperature, and high and low impedance. It will adjust the RF automatically to the optimal setting to get contraction without a burn. And which is why if you ever wondered why on Body Tight you can't set the power, like the older versions of Body Tight, is because now it's done automatically based upon optimal rate of rise of temperature, which is about 20 degrees Celsius per cubic centimeter per second. It allows you to control the experience safely and effectively. And so you put a little tumescent anesthesia. With AccuTight, it's just a wetting technique. You have your parameters and your settings. You insert your big Body Tight, your smaller Face Tight, or your teeny weeny AccuTight. And your goal is to get the FSN up to about 69 degrees, whereupon they contract significantly. And you treat multiple levels. And then get to the dermis at about 40 degrees to 42 degrees, where you get non-ablative dermal remodeling. Those are the typical endpoints. No other company, not laser, not a vaser, not a plasma, can control the dermis and the FSN that exquisitely. Not that you can't get contraction from any source of heat, you can. You just can't control it so exquisitely and so safely on eyelids, on faces, on jawlines, on necks, and then all the body areas, arms, tummies, inner thighs, and bra line. Our friend with RF is going to be the FSN. and getting that to contract at multiple levels. That happens at 69 degrees. And then dermal remodeling at 40 to 42 degrees. Vertical sequential stimulation. That's important because when you see Morpheus from the outside in, it's also vertical thermal stimulation of the FSM. Lots of articles to support this. Many, many articles supporting, depending on your technique and parameters, you can get between 40 and 60% contraction over 9 to 12 months. The first 60, 70% is in the first 6 months, and then a little bit of remodeling over the second 6 months. Again, validated and credentialed in many, many articles by some of the leading plastic surgeons in the world that were initially very reluctant to admit this technology may make a difference. So contraction, here's an example of a tummy tuck I have turned on its side. I do what I call a stamping technique. I put my foot on the pedal, the temperature rises. When it gets to 69 degrees, contraction. That will also turn on and off around 69 degrees and never get higher, minimizing the risk of a thermal injury. Foot on the pedal, rises to 69 degrees, tremendous internal contraction. That's the on-the-table FSN contraction that any practice can get with the right parameters and settings. That's a significant amount of soft tissue change. You just put a little Drake beat to that and you could dance. Okay, so what is the gap then? It is the gap between all the things we have no downtime with, like IPL and diodes and non-thermal SAL and facial treatments like injectables. And they work and they have an outcome. And then you go right to a facelift or right to a tummy tuck or right to an arm lift. Inmode created a whole gap opportunity and articles written around gap by plastic surgeons offering non-excisional opportunities that may be not as good as the surgical option, but pretty darn good compared to what we were offering before. And so there's a lot of patients out there. It turns out over the last 4 or 5 years, it's a huge percentage of Asian, Australasian, and North American and Eastern European, Western European patients that do not want an excision. They'll accept a lesser outcome, but they still want good. And that's what separates Inmode from the other non-excisional options, predictability and good noticeable outcomes. Lots of articles, again, as Moshe mentioned, supporting this concept. So just a disclaimer, a lot of these approaches of mine are a little more assertive than you might be trained on or that Inmode might talk about. Like this body type patient, I typically will treat to 69 or 70 degrees deep, do multiple levels, and get the skin to 40 to 42. This was 2 liters of aspirate with a really nice outcome. I can't get that without RFAL, without body type. Again, darker skin patient, bra line, hip, and tummy, nice result with RFAL. I'm sure you might have read about this particular former model, Evangelista, who had a cool sculpting outcome called paradoxical hyperplasia. Terrible side effect, which is why, at least in America, cooling is dead. People have moved to RF. Now you have to decide what kind of RF. We're going to talk about it towards the end. I had a patient who was a bodybuilder, like one of these muscle guys, these big dudes. He did one single cool sculpting and got a horrendous paradoxical hyperplasia. Horrendous, worst one I've ever seen. Not in my practice, thankfully, but still cool sculpting. It's kind of dead and dying because it's painful, paresthesia, demarcation, deadly expensive to the doctor, and this dreaded complication of paradoxical hyperplasia. That's a lot of extra skin, about 24 centimeters from the umbilicus to the pubic area. This is the type of patient who came to me saying, I don't want a tummy tuck. You know, I wear these little bathing suits and I do all this kind of muscle guy stuff, and he didn't want to do a tummy tuck. I said, sir, I'm not sure I can get that kind of contraction even with body tight. So I did a single aggressive body tight on him, and with a single treatment was able to get about 15 to 16 centimeters to contract. Now that's not perfect. You can come back and do that again, but I'm going to make him wait 9 to 12 months. This is about 6 months after. That kind of contraction I cannot get with plasma, with laser or vaser, because I need to control the dermis and the FSN. So bulk heating takes a little more time. Plan on 15 minutes per body area to get that contraction, but most patients are going to benefit significantly if you take that time. Okay, that's body tight. Many of you will never ever do a great big belly, not interested, don't want to do that. You want small zones. So Inmode, about 3 or 4 years after body tight, came up with a tiny little area called the face tight that serves the facial market. Because in America, 70% of all that money, of that $16 billion, of that 82% is on facial things, and about 30% on body. And so many patients want to get a jawline and a neck, but they don't want a scar or a scalpel. And that's where Inmode's innovation to take all this cool stuff in the body tight, contact, temperature cutoff internally, rate of rise of temperature, impedance high and low, and put it in a smaller applicator, the face tight. So 4 years after body tight, Inmode launched the face tight. This gave us small face zone, jawline, neck, and small body area. About 2 years later, the most phenomenal of the applicators for facial and small body areas called the AccuTight. These have all the same safety features as the body tight in smaller applicators, which created a whole gap opportunity in the face and the neck. So face tight went from 2.4 millimeters with the body tight to 1.2 diameter. It went from 17 centimeters to 12 centimeters, half the size. Same concept, bipolar radio frequency energy with thermal containment, so you do not have to worry about the facial nerve, FSN, and dermal remodeling. Now on the face, there's far less FSN. So now you're going to rely more on dermal remodeling, hence why you need so much thermal control around that endpoint. And so very simple tactic and strategy. This is at a workshop in the US, just treating... I'll make that quiet here. And so I'm going to be about 66 to 70. I like 70, and I'm going to get the endpoint up to 40. And once I'm at 70 deep, pop, 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 and 40 on the skin, each zone is done, and then I move on. It takes about 1 to 2 kilojoules for most necks. That kind of contraction allows this lady, who's in her late 40s with a lot of preplatysmal fat, to get a great contour. I cannot get that without heat, and I can't get that safely without body tight. Not laser, not vaser, not plasma. All have way more risk than you're going to want to take on a neck and a jawline, and you certainly aren't going to go around the eyes and around the midface, as you would with the AccuTight. So excellent outcome with thermal coagulation, deep and superficial. Again, a lady in her 50s with a lot of preplatysmal fat with tremendous contraction. That kind of safety happens from bulk heating, FSN, and dermal remodeling. The biggest innovation in RFL has been this, the AccuTight, the size of the palm of your hand. That internal cannula is smaller than the 22-gauge cannula I use to inject HA gel fillers or radius or sculptor. It's smaller than that. So when I do a combined treatment on the face in my side office under local, I would do 21-gauge port, go in with my AccuTight, do my heating, and then I'd inject my filler, then I'd do my toxin, I finish with PDOs. Those 4 things would take maybe half an hour, and you get tremendous outcomes. And I'll show you some of these effects. And again, my cannula, my dermosculpt, is bigger than my AccuTight, which is awesome for access ports, and it's very, very, very simple to do. Many patients need tightening, not volume. Many patients need reduction and effacement, not addition. And so these are the areas that I use what I call, for my patients, I tell them I do injectable skin tightening, injectable neuromodulating, injectable biostimulation, and injectable neurotoxin and suture. These are the 4 things I'll inject. And I decide where I need to inject heat for tightening, suspension, toxin, or biostimulatory or gel space fillers. Patients understand that, but many areas of the face need tightening through RF, not filling, not a toxin. Again, that's all part of this new injectable paradigm, toxin, filler, RF, and suture, all done at the same time. The AccuTight works exactly like your face tight, which works exactly like your body tight. Measures temperature, high, temperature low, and cut you off. It measures the rate of rise of temperature, high and low impedance, and contact, 1,000 times a second, all in the size of a handheld device. Very elegant. These are the zones you can treat safely. So upper lid, brow, above the orbital septum, very safe. Again, here's a little video where I'm doing Accutite under local in an injectable patient who is also going to get a little bit of Botox, a little bit of filler, but I always do the heating first and then decide if suture suspension is required. Again, upper lid, above the orbicularis oculi, under local. This isn't tumescent. I'm not aspirating fat. It's just injectable soft tissue tightening to efface the upper lid, tighten the lower lid, efface the NLF and the labiomental fold. If you're injecting a filler, all of you can do this. This is easier than injecting a filler, and there's no embolic vascular compromise. And so lower lid, preorbicularis or suborbicularis, in front of the muscle or behind the muscle. Again, simple to do. This is a patient where the upper lid and lower lid has been done non-excisionally, and I could do better with a bleph, but that's okay. She didn't want a bleph. No matter how much better I could have done an open bleph, she wanted the best non-excisional solution. And there's many patients like that. They're either going to walk down the street to my competitor, who will offer her that, which is what she wants, or I'm going to insist, no, you have to do a facelift. You must do a bleph, because it's the best result. Women don't always want the best result. They want no scars sometimes, no stigma, less recovery. Now, there's a lot of recovery around the eye, still about a week, but there's no scar. To get that result, that's a pretty good result for a non-excisional solution. Again, this is from an oculoplastic colleague of mine that I trained. You can go through the septum, pop right through if you're a bleph surgeon, and use the Accutite for the herniated orbital fat. You can use it around the mouth. This is the most common area you're going to use the Accutite, perioral. Labiomental fold, jowl, nasolabial fold. So rather than filling or biostimulating, you're going to tighten. And then add less of that biostimulatory HA gel filler. And this is a very simple nasolabial fold effacement, local anesthesia. I am not aspirating fat. I almost never aspirate fat with Accutite. It's injectable RF skin tightening. Very straightforward. Through that same port, I can then inject a filler, a biostimulatory product. Then I might do some PDO, fixed or non-fixed suspension to hold it in place, and finish with toxin, all on the same session. Buccal space, labiomental fold, jowl, very common. And here's the lower third of the face, treating the labiomental fold. Same concept, little local anesthesia, and then I do a stamping, pop, 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 and a moving technique. The pop, 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 that's 70, still need the FSN, and the bump, 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 that's 40 degrees. So it's the same endpoints, 69 or 70 deep and 40 externally. So this kind of lady, which in the past I might have injected 8 syringes of filler because she's old and deflated, now I can do perioral, labiomental fold, inside out, and then Morpheus from the outside in. We'll get to the Morpheus. Now I inject far less volume, and I focus more on tightening the lower part of the face, or non-excisional bleph. Again, very simple to do with very simple endpoints. Jowls. This lady who I had seen about 15 years before for a facelift had some recurrent jowling, and rather than putting a bunch of filler in her pre-jowl and post-jowl sulcus, why not just take the jowl down and then add filler if you need to. I just took her jowl down, improved her jawline with injectable RF on its own. So that's innovation, but what if you could have a device that you didn't have to go inside, or you didn't want to go inside? You can add that RFAL from the outside. That was the next innovation from Inmode, and in 2018 they launched this product to go after this market, the skin tightening, body contouring market, but not from the inside. Let's take all that cool stuff and go from the outside. And that was the innovation that has led to this worldwide phenomenon called the Morpheus. The Morpheus, to me, is not a microneedler. There's a lot of pretenders, and they work, they're okay, but not the Morpheus. Morpheus is totally different, and I'll explain why. It truly is the Accutite times 40 turned on its end with positive electrodes that are gold-plated. Why gold and not silicone? Because the ablative energy is so high, silicone melts. And it goes after the FSN from the outside. It's not a little microneedler of the dermis or the first 1 or 2 millimeters of the fat. This goes right down to almost a centimeter deep. And every electrode is positively charged. The negative electrodes sit on the skin just like body tight, just like face tight, just like Accutite. They're not moving, they're static. But is a monopolar positive electrode ablation that is summated times the number of electrodes that are penetrating. And this has been quite a phenomenon. Take the Accutite, turn it on its side, keep the negative electrodes on the skin, send the electrodes into the FSN from the outside, and ablate sequentially. 753, 642. Get as much FSN as you can to contribute to that soft tissue contraction, and then go 2 and 1 and get the subdermal effect that you get with Accutite. So our friend is still the FSN. Now we're getting at it from the outside. This is not microneedling. Microneedling, and I like those. I've got 2 or 3 from JASIS and 1 from Sapphire. These work, but they're for my estheticians. A little bit of, most of the injury is mechanical, not thermal. They have little rows of positive and negative electrodes that communicate. The ablative index is 1/30th the single ablative lesion you get from 1 electrode on Morpheus. That's about a 2,000 micron injury from each of those electrodes. 300 or 400 microns of complete tissue ablation, another 1,500 microns of irreversible thermal coagulation before the RF flows not to a little electrode beside it, but up to the epidermal surface where the negative electrode is for bulk heating of the dermal tissue. Totally different than a microneedler. These are little rows of positive, negative, and the RF communicates for a very small ablative index. Not that they don't work. My estheticians use them, not me as a surgeon. They need 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 treatments. Why do doctors like them? They're cheap, virtually no disposable, and they're safe, but they also don't work for what I'm looking for my fractional RF technology to do. And so the burst allowed us to replicate outside in, maybe not as good as Accutite or FaceTite, but the best we've ever been able to do from the outside in by vertically accessing the FSN. 753 burst, 642, or like I do sometimes when I want to triple the energy, I'll come unburst and do 7 passes, but at 50 or 60 millijoules per pin, not 30, because you get cut off with the burst. And so this is a slow motion version of what you're seeing from the outside in. This is triple burst at 7. Now you're only going to see the ablative at the back, because that's where the needles are touching. The rest are in the air, but this is what it looks like. Imagine inside your tissue. Slow motion. So excursion, ablation, 7 millimeters, now 5, now 3. Now they have to be in contact with the fat to explode, but you could see the explosion that occurs when those are touching the surface. Each one of these is a positive electrode. Each one is gold plated. The last 800 microns are uncoated, and that's what gives the positive energy. The negative electrodes are the side rails on the surface of the skin. So very similar to Accutite, FaceTite, and BodyTite, and you can double burst at 5.3 or 4.2. This now allows me as a physician to treat from the outside and access the FSN like I was inside at multiple levels. Maybe not quite as good, but better than anything that has ever been on the market from the outside. Vertical sequential ablation. Each one of these lesions, 2 millimeters, 2,000 microns, 300 of absolute tissue ablation, and then another 1,500 or so of irreversible thermal coagulation, and then non-ablative heating going up to the dermis for substantial external controlled contraction over that 6-month period of time. Lots of papers on the Morpheus, studied by the best dermatologists and plastics and cosmetic physicians. There's no plume, but most of you aren't using ablative CO2 anyway on your darker skin patients. Now, Inmode is a terrible marketing company. They don't do direct to consumer. They make good stuff and give it to you. Who's our marketer nowadays? Kim Kardashian. That's the kind of journal that your patients are reading. What is Kim and Chloe doing? What is Bella Thorne doing? What are they? A lot of the time they're posting, and Inmode doesn't pay them a penny, like you saw last week in all these magazines about how awesome the Morpheus is, and before that, how awesome the Forma was. And that's where a lot of awareness from your consumers come. Oh my God, she's doing it, I better consider it. They don't look at billboards anymore. They go on their handheld social channels on Instagram and TikTok and Telegram and find out what is going on. So you got a patient, you pick your tip, the 24-pin basic, the 12-pin prime around the eye, or the resurfacing tip for epidermal dermal ablation if you need to on lighter skin patients. Or like I use, the M-body a lot. You need special settings, so you pick your tip, pick your settings, and treat the patient. I use a lot of the M8 body on the body, of course, and on the lower face, and I use the M24 a lot in the upper face and some thin areas of the body. Again, these are my settings, not the company's. This is far more aggressive than probably you've been taught to use, but you need to be a little more aggressive than the company tells you to be to get the kind of outcomes I'm going to show. So this is a patient where I did that one and done. She has 100 units of a neuromodulator, done last. She has about 4 syringes of filler, typically in her malar zygomatic area. The rest is all the M24 with aggressive parameters. Again, this is now adding the M24 and the resurfacing tip. In North America, particularly Toronto, about 40% of my patients are Asian or Southeast Asian. So I don't pull out the resurfacing tip much with them. But for someone with that kind of elastosis, I need to ablate. And so the resurfacing tip in America is not as often used as it should be. Every time there are epidermal dermal issues I need to treat, acne, scarring, or fine lines, I'll pull that out after my M24. Again, Asian patient with a very difficult kind of acne scarring, boxcar and ice pick. Not much reducible, very hard to, I tell these patients I can't get rid of them, but I can improve them significantly with the Morpheus. This is how I use the burst on the face, along the jawline for the smashed subcutaneous fat, under the eye, and then the M24 elsewhere, and sometimes the resurfacing tip. Again, a lot more aggressive than what you might have been taught to use. But you can get some tremendous improvements on the quality of wrinkle and lax skin. Again, Asian remodeling, tremendous improvements on papillary acne and eruption, and soft tissue changes and contouring. Now, if you're going to use it on the face and you think about the body and FSN, the M body has been huge. We use this all over the body as the primary contouring device to get a result. Now, if you have a hands-free, Cool Sculpting, or M-Sculpt, or True Sculpt, or Sculpture, and you're looking for a device to add to that opportunity, the M8 will transform how you offer body. Just ain't hands-free. Well, most patients don't care whether it's hands-free or not. They just want an outcome. And the M8 body adds that. I can guarantee you, ma'am, after a single treatment, you will see an outcome. Maybe not the final result, but no other single treatment modality is going to give you this kind of opportunity. How? Because I'm doing external RFAL, external FSN, and coagulation. Each one of these lesions gives me about 300 to 400 microns of dead fat. Summate those up, there's often 100 to 110 cc's of dead fat with every treatment. No other technology can do that. And so there's also the summative contraction over that, 6 months to ensure that the skin is also going to be good if the fat is treated. And so you can treat your M8 for body contouring of the abdomen with some atrophic striatum improvement. Again, abdomen contouring, bra line, arms. All these areas will be improved with the M8. So stretch marks, thinner patients or thicker patients with atrophic striatum. If they're thin, become much more superficial, 3 and 2 millimeter, sometimes then the resurfacing tip if they're lighter skin, to treat this kind of atrophic striatum. Now, if they're still red, I do IPL first. Get the red out and then treat the atrophic component of that atrophic stretch mark. Skin tightening. If they don't have much fat, you just want to tighten the skin of the body, the arm, the inner thigh, the upper abdomen. Again, great for skin tightening of these areas, difficult areas to treat. Suprapatellar area of the knee, good area to treat. And then cellulite. Cellulite, I'm not talking very deep dimples and nodules. That's more subcision. Like I use the face tight and treat the nodules and release and then treat with the Morpheus. I'm talking about very superficial cellulite, cottage cheese, orange peel type of cellulite. We can get significant improvements. And then hyperhidrosis. If you've got a patient with cosmetic sweating or they've been on Botox for a while, I'll take the Botox, do 100 units in each axilla, but before I do the Botox, I drop the hammer with the M8. And what they'll find when that Botox wears off at 8-9 months, they're still pretty dry. And so I've also done some side-to-side studies with 100 units in the axilla and the M8 combined with the Accutite, virtually equivalent. So again, another off-label application for axillary, not palmar, not plantar, but axillary hyperhidrosis. And it makes sense. We're going exactly where the apical and eccrine glands live, and we're ablating them. Of course, you're going to have some permanent sweat reduction. Now, combination. This is where a lot of you will find huge value. Non-excisional patient wants the best result. You know how to do the Accutite. You know how to do the Morpheus. Put them together. Put them together. And so this really allows a gap opportunity on the face and on the neck. Taking your Accutite and your Morpheus and treat the skin like a sandwich. Or take your face tight and the Accutite, treat the skin like a sandwich. If you do body work, use your body tight to get fat coagulation, FSN, aspirate, and then stamp with your Morpheus right when you're done. This will improve your outcome. Now, this is side office still. I'm using a little lidocaine, very dilute, and the Accutite. I wouldn't call it tumescent because I'm never sucking fat with the Accutite. It's purely skin tightening. And I can use that on the jowl, on the perioral structures, and under the eye, like I showed you before. Now, these combination treatment outcomes are tremendous. This is, again, upper lid and lower lid, non-excisional. She's still a bit red because I used a resurfacing tip on her. This is for about 3 months later. Upper lid, lower lid, Accutite and Morpheus. Now, this is obviously an excisional bleph, but look at the textural improvement on this patient. I know nothing else that takes skin like this to this other than Morpheus with those aggressive settings of parameters I showed you. This is one of these ladies where I did an upper lid bleph, excisional, but everything else, brow, mid-face, perioral, and neck is all combined Accutite, Morpheus, suture suspension. To get that with any other non-excisional technique that I know. Excisional, non-excisional lower lid, malar pads, also good for the malar pad, Accutite, take that lymphatic area away and stamp with the Morpheus, and perioral improvement on her jawline with Accutite and Morpheus. Excisional upper lid blepharoplasty, everything else non-excisional. And again, close up with that lady I did before. Central oval T-zone is all Morpheus and Accutite. I wanted to show her before I told her to come back and excise the upper lid. This is before that upper lid excision at about 3 months after her treatment. Lower face of the previous lady. Facelift of mine from about 20 years ago, still hanging on, but her neck had fallen apart, did not want a neck lift. Either I let her go to someone else or offer a non-excisional solution, which was Accutite and Morpheus. So when you look at the combined opportunity out of these workstations, I think Inmode, Moshe, Dr. Krendel have done a great job taking all the things we do as surgeons and create 3 applicators, now the Morpheus, and giving us options that maybe they're not as good as a facelift or a tummy tuck or an arm lift, but they're pretty darn compelling to patients who don't want downtime. And so when you look at the top 10 things that I make money without excision, look where the gap impacts upon my cash, upon my business. These technologies offer these opportunities for virtually every one of these blue things can be offered from a Morpheus or an Accutite. And so the pandemic is kind of fading. Maybe we're entering recessionary times, maybe not. There's so many variables uncertain, but one thing's certain, patients are going to want to come to you. If you give them a non-excisional option, you're going to have more patients. You're going to have better outcomes if you measure that temperature. I thought I would never see a slide like this, where even older, well-known plastic surgeons in America who 10 years ago would have, well, I don't need that. I just do good with my scalpel. Now, you see the Dr. Cheryl Astons and the Dan Bakers and the Rod Works saying every plastic surgeon should have this in their office. That wouldn't have been so 10 years ago. It shows you the kind of R&D and outcome that Inmode's been able to bring to the market. So great investment, internal and external RFAL. But if you understand how those work, and you see that 30% is body shaping, hands-free or non-hands-free, Inmode looked at that, look at the skin tightening and body contouring growth. At the time, there was this big world war of Ice Age, cool sculpting, versus hyperthermia, which was sculpture at the time. And they looked at the success of this company particularly and said, you know what? We're a big electrosurgical company. We can offer something. And they came kind of late to the hands-free market, post-2016. By that time, cool sculpting was already on its way down in America, and hyperthermia, RF style, was taking over. This is still a big thing in America, non-invasive body contouring. I would say the M8 has given a tremendous opportunity for body contouring, but it's hands-on. And it's also uncomfortable. Can we take that same RF and create a pain-free, hands-free opportunity? And that was Inmode's challenge. And within a year, 2016, 2017, they R&D'd, and in 2018, they launched the first version of the Evolve, which had 18 applicators, and took advantage of the fact that this company knows how to control skin temperature, fat temperature, and control it 1,000 times a second to make RF bipolar style very safe. They followed the science. Hyperthermia works. It works in oncology. If you can sustain a tissue to about 50 degrees for 12 minutes, you'll kill virtually every cell. But 50 degrees gives a burn, so we can't use it on the skin unless we cool the skin, like sculpture or like TrueSculpt. But if we cool the skin, we ain't going to get skin tightening, and there's the problem. What Inmode decided to do is, no. We'll get the fat to 45 or 46, and we'll keep the skin at 43 because we can do that. No one else can do that. Virtually every company has to cool the skin to get the fat to a thermal dose that kills the adipocyte. And so the first technology they launched with was the Evolve. The problem with the Evolve was it worked. You had the tight, you had the trim, and you had the tone. Tone for muscle, tight for the skin, and trim for the fat. But you had to do 3 applicators each for 30 minutes. That's an hour-and-a-half treatment. And so there was a brilliant first technology with 3-in-1 on one system. It just took too long. And so they went back to the drawing board, which Inmode will do if it's not working the way it should. They retweak it and launch. But they didn't charge people to upgrade their base platform. They just swapped out the trim for what's called the Transform. The Transform is the first applicator, does all 3 in one applicator. M-Sculpt Neo does 2, this does 3. And so, first of all, they launched with 9 electrodes, 3 positive and 6 negative, bipolar. Why bipolar? You want to know where that RF's going. You want to kill fat under the skin, not in the abdomen, not around the small bowel, not around the lung, not around the pericardium, but in the subcutaneous fat. Each one of these electrodes has a sensor. Guess what? That sensor is measured 1,000 times a second, and the RF is turned on and off to that individual sensor 1,000 times a second to keep safe. Simple ultrasound gel is applied, and it's going to tighten the skin, kill the fat, and treat the muscle with virtually no AEs. The Transform's been in the US market for about a year now, incredibly popular because it's the only one that offers a physician a pain-free, hands-free skin, fat, muscle solution with no disposable. And so how does it work? We'll quickly finish with how this works. Well, basically a simple fixation system with a belt. You can treat any small, medium area, arms, inner thigh, bra line, tummy. That's the vast majority, and hips. About the size of your hand, each one of these, you get 6 of them. Each has a sensor that starts out blue, and as the temperature rises, the sensors change color. Blue to magenta to red. At red, you're in the sweet spot, 40 degrees. 41 is orange, 42 and 43 is yellow. Once you're yellow, the skin will never go above 43. Never 44, never 41. Stay there as long as you want, just like any external applicator from Inmode. But the fat will rise a little bit because there's no cutoff around the fat. And it's always going to be about 2 degrees hotter after the homeostasis. Takes about 2 minutes, gets it to the end point. And that's what it looks like when it's therapeutic. This one will turn on and off, and they'll all be red or yellow. You can see it on the user screen and on the skin. The goal is to shrink the fat. But if you shrink the fat and you don't iron out the shirt, you're going to have wrinkles. And no one wants wrinkles. We can see that after cool sculpting, that jelly belly. You can see after sculpture, after True Sculpt, and after M-Sculpt Neo, because you've got to control the skin and the fat at the same time. No other company has that thermal capability. And so you've got to control the skin if you're going to melt fat. Why do we know it works? Kinetic energy that gets that skin temperature up to 42 degrees for a period of time will equal collagen and ground substance. We know that from the Forma Plus, those of you that have it, and then the external applicator from Body Type, Face Type, and AccuType. We can get more collagen, elastin, and ground substance, upwards of 23% more after a series of treatments. So the question is, how many treatments and how long do you treat for? Those are the two questions. And if you look to the basic science, typically a thermal dose, what does that mean? It means temperature times time. Temperature times time equals thermal dose. For skin, thermal dose is likely going to be 45 minutes at 43 degrees once a week for 6 weeks. That's going to optimize collagen production. Now that ain't going to kill any fat. You got to get the fat to 45 or 46 degrees for 45 minutes. And you got to maintain that differential. And so the first 2 minutes, this is what happens. RF flows from positive to negative, and you heat up the skin. Once it gets to 43, turns on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off the whole time, as long as you want. The skin will never go over 43. What happens as that RF starts to penetrate the fat up and down the FSN, and it's got nowhere to go because there's very little blood supply, and fat's not that conductive, but the FSN is, the fat starts to heat up, and it gets about 2 degrees hotter than the skin. Now we've got 45 degrees and 43 degrees. That takes about 3 or 4 minutes. So typically at my clinic, we set it for 50 minutes, 5 minutes to get to this homeostasis. Then it'll live like that for 45 minutes straight without a thermal injury. That fat will die 45 minutes. About 30% of the fat treated for 45 minutes at 45 degrees will die. I wish it was 80%, just isn't. We'd have to get to 50 degrees to get 80%, but then we couldn't protect the skin at that temperature. And so that's what it looks like after about 3 or 4 minutes. Skin at 43, fat at 45. The muscle gets a little pre-warmed, and that's when we turn on the EMS if they're thin enough to benefit, because the muscle contracts more efficiently when it's warmed up. Now, Inmode will kill fat 2 ways with the Transform. The first is straight up hyperthermia, 45 minutes at 45 degrees. But in the 2 seconds the EMS is on, high voltage pulses, which those of you who had the body effects or tight effects in the early days, this is high voltage RF number 2, about a kilovolt of energy in a very short period of time, a nanosecond, and a train of them. And that high voltage pulse changes the transmembrane potential, and it turns off the ATP pumps that pump out the bad stuff like calcium and solutes, and everything just flows in. So this kills fat through a chemical homicide. The nucleus doesn't like it and turns off. So how does this work? Well, and this has been around for a long time. Most of these papers go back to 2010, 11, 12, 13 with the body effects, which is suction-coupled RF and electroporation. And we know that most fat cells exposed to electroporation will undergo apoptosis. Apoptosis factor number 1 was the immunochemistry stain to show this result. And so how does the Transform kill fat 2 ways? First is straight up hyperthermia. We know that works. Doesn't matter how that fat cell, laser or monopolar or bipolar, got to 45, it's going to die after 45 minutes, certain number of them. And then for the 2 seconds, because this is 2 seconds on, then 2 seconds of EMS, you get high voltage pulses. So you can kill fat through hyperthermia and through HVP. So the Transform never stops killing fat. One non-thermal HVP, one thermal, which is bipolar. And during that 2 second cycle, EMS is going after the muscle. Supraphysiologic, supratetanic contraction. It's just not through a magnet. It's direct electrical current. Whereas M-Sculpt uses an old magnet coil from 1985 that gets converted to electricity, and that works too. The problem is the magnetic coil it degenerates over time. And you've got a disposable. In America, it costs me about $15,000 US every 150 patients because the magnet breaks down. I got to buy a new handpiece. The transform handpiece never breaks down. It's primary electrical. You don't need a magnet to get contraction. High FEM is high intensity focused electromagnetic energy, which is really saying, let's take a magnet and create electricity. Why not just create electricity primarily? Because muscle doesn't contract with a magnet. It needs electricity. And so you get the supratetanic, supramuscular contraction, and you do a series of treatments. How many? Again, once a week for 6 weeks. You could do 4 if you want, but we have to treat the skin for 6 weeks to get skin contractions. So the protocol typically once a week for 6 weeks. And you're going to get the smaller BMI patients benefiting from treating their muscle. What 2 areas mostly? Rectus abdominis and the gluteus maximus. Rarely the gastroc or the tricep. And we will get predictable muscle hypertrophy and hyperplasia. It's going to go away. They've got to come back for maintenance. The skin tightening is going to need maintenance 3 times a year. 3 times a year. And so this is what it looks like on a thinner patient with a transformed treatment. This one is turned off, and this one is turned on, just to show you how powerful. This is the most powerful EMS on the market. We had to turn it down. It was almost too powerful. You can stimulate one side of the rectus, and both sides are going to contract. And so this is what a thin patient looks like having a transformed treatment at a workshop. It engages, and you get supratetanic, supraphysiologic contraction, the kind that all the sit-ups in the world, that's not going to do it. Every actin and a myosin fiber is sliding over each other. And you get about 300,000 of these stimuli in a 45-minute cycle, which is a potent stimulus for messenger RNA to make what? More fibers, more actin and myosin. So you get a hyperplasia and a hypertrophy. And so when you put it all together, which is why I break this slide up, it's kind of quite an orchestra, and it's noisy. But this is what it looks like. 2 seconds of bipolar RF, get the skin to 43, get the fat to 45. After 2 seconds, go to EMS and HVP, then bipolar RF, then HVP and EMS, then bipolar RF, then HVP for 45 minutes, never stopping measuring each electrode 1,000 times a second. That's elegance. And at the end of it, you want skin to be thicker, fat to be smaller, and muscle to be bigger. That's what we want. That's what women want. Now, if you're a big chubby gal with a big pot, you ain't never going to see your muscle. So why treat it? Because they like it. They're never going to see their muscle. And I could say, ma'am, I'm not going to put the EMS on because you're just too fat. They won't like that. And so typically we turn it on and say, oh, yeah, it's like going to the gym. I know they're never going to see their rectus abdominis, but we turn it on anyway. And so you can get some very nice results with this technology. Again, disclaimer, these are how I treat. Now I'll tell you what the company says. I do once a week for 6 weeks. That's protocol number 1. I'll tell you about protocol number 2 in a second. I call it the one and done. Protocol number 1, woman doesn't want pain. It's usually women. They don't want the Morpheus. They just want to come once a week and get the best result they can. Pain-free. That's our first protocol. And it works quite well. Here's a gal who did once a week for 6 weeks. And if you look at her fat, it's less, no question. She still has quite a bit of pinchable fat. So if she thought it was all going to be gone like liposuction, it ain't. And I've been doing cool sculpting, sculpture. Before that, remember Zerona? And before that was UltraShape for like almost 15 years. Patients come with wildly unrealistic expectations. You got to walk them off the ladder and say, ma'am, we can kill maybe 2 centimeters. That's it. And if they have 10 centimeters, you still have 8 centimeters of fat. So that's a pretty good result. But look at her skin. See how it's kind of cellulitic? Look how smooth it is after. That's the beauty of skin and fat. Her skin is tighter. She has less fat. And we treated her muscle, but I got to tell you, I can't see any muscle through that. But we turn it on anyway. And she's got bigger muscle, but she's still too chubby. Here's a gal where you can see the muscle. Now, if I had M-sculpt, I can't treat over the mediastinum. I can't treat over the lung. I can't treat over the chest. Why? Because there's a broadcast microwave going into the mediastinum or the abdomen. And so I can treat that patient on her tummy, flip the transform around, treat her bra line, treat her abdomen. Now I can see a muscle on her, and that's really nice, fat reduction and skin tightening with muscle hypertrophy. Here's a gal who came to me. She had liposuction elsewhere. Skin doesn't look so great, little uneven, great for the transform, and again, looks much better after. But her skin is tighter, and her fat is more even and reduced. Here's a young gal. Now, she's thinner. You're going to see her muscle. We can treat over a mediastinum. I can't do that with the M-Sculpt Neo. And when I'm treating the abdomen, she's got a bit of rectus diastasis. I'd be worried about the broadcast RF from Neo going into your abdomen. But I don't have to worry with the Transform because it's subcutaneous. This is a male with gynecomastia that's fatty, not glandular, but fat. And again, I can treat that with the bipolar technology Transform, but I can't with M-Sculpt Neo. Nice rectus abdominis improvement. And that's from, again, one of our luminaries with nice improvement. That's not my case. Inner thigh, arms, upper abdomen, love handles, bra line, chest, and when I'm treating the abdomen with Transform, it's bipolar. I know that is going to the fat of subcutaneous tissue. If I treat with a broadcast monopolar RF, that may be going to the small bowel. Now, if you tell me, we've done studies, Dr. Mulholland, 5 years, 8 years from now, we know there's no increase of Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, no pancreas cancer, fine. I'll use broadcast RF on the abdomen. Until you show me that, it makes no sense why I can't turn on your device for the mediastinum, but I can for the abdomen. It makes no sense to me. And so this is the only device right now in the American or world market that has all three in one applicator. All three, skin, fat, and muscle. Now, you get a few add-ons in the American market. I'm not sure here in Asia, but if you just want something for skin only with no fat, you need very small electrodes closer together, and that's called the tight. You get 8 of these, and this is just for skin only. If you got a patient who's had a BBL and they just want muscle and you want no fat at all, then I'll pull out the tone and you get 4 of these, which is just EMS. There is no RF. There's no electroporation in this at all. And you can use just the tone on those types of patients. And so I get asked this a lot, and I've spoke for BTL for a couple of years. They make good stuff. It just is not this, not quite this. And so how would they compare? This is straight out of BTL's textbook. This is not my slides. They call it 2-in-1. They have a broadcast monopolar RF, which is 25 million cycles per second. Inmode is 1 million. I'll tell you why that's important. So they have a very deeply penetrating, almost microwave, like their old Vanquish, and they can treat the fat. But unfortunately, it's fat I may not want to treat, like visceral fat, like peri-organ fat. And they've got a good EMS. It's high fem, and it works, no question. But it's going to break down about every 150 patients and cost me 15 grand because they don't make primary electricity. Why? I don't know. And so when I'm treating fat in dangerous areas like over abdominal organs, or over the lung and the heart, I want to know I'm staying in the subcutaneous tissue. Neo will not allow me to use it on the chest for good reason. But they let me use it on the abdomen. Why? Because they do talk about killing visceral fat, which is great. Maybe that's where we all need to go one day. You need to prove to me the small bowel and the other organs are not going to be affected deleteriously. They treat at 25 million cycles per second. That is essentially a microwave. FDA, I'm not sure about in Thailand, but the FDA calls medical RF 100,000 pulses a second to 5 million, but not 25 million. That's why it goes so deep. That's why my old Vanquish didn't even touch the skin. It went through the air and into the fat because it's a microwave, not RF. Well, then call it a microwave. Why would doctors be afraid of a microwave? For obvious reasons. Right now, I cannot use M-Sculpt Neo on a chest or a heart. Oh, but it's okay on the abdomen. That makes no sense. This thing goes right through the visceral fat and the organs. So I'd be very cautious if you are an M-Sculpt Neo user to use it over the abdomen, which is 80% of all the patients we see for non-invasive body. And so your coils are going to break down. You're going to get a broadcast, essentially microwave, and it probably works okay. But it does not guarantee your skin's going to be tight after because you can't control that RF. It goes deep, not superficial. And so if I had to say, well, they're probably the 2 leading companies in the American market for body contouring. They both work. However, skin-only Inmode's Transform is going to give you skin. M-Sculpt Neo, no. Fat, they both work. But you got to wonder what fat you're killing with M-Sculpt Neo, and is it safe? 3-in-1, yes. 2-in-1, okay. Depth, yes. Safe. Guaranteed. Subcutaneous, not visceral and not mediastinal. No disposable, and therefore more profitable. So in my practice, I would say probably the Transform is going to be the one I'm going to want, and that's why it dominates in the last year of the American market. So the first 3-in-1, that's a tremendous innovation that Inmode said, look, we came out with the first 3-in-1, but it was 18 applicators. Now let's put all 18 into one. That happened in 1 year. That's a very responsive R&D department. And so for body contouring, I want something that works, something that's affordable, something that's safe. And when I say work, it's just okay. All these hands-free are just okay, but your patients come in thinking lipo. So what's the solution for those patients? Program 2. Here's program 2. They're going to come in and they say, Dr. Mulholland, first I say, can you handle a little bit of discomfort? You okay with Botox and filler? Hair removal's okay? Okay. How would you like this program? Let's do the M8 and the Transform, and we'll see you in 6 weeks. That's the one and done. Now, why keep your Transform? Because some patients want program 3. Dr. Mulholland, I really want my muscle. Well, the M8 doesn't give you muscle. And so you're going to come back week 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we'll measure your fat in 6 weeks. So those are the 3 programs we offer. The M8 are the last 2 programs. The one and done, or the M8 one and done, plus week 2, 3, 4, 5, where we still treat with all 3 in 1. Why not kill more fat? Why not tighten skin? But the outcome is predicated upon the M8 opportunity. And that's been very popular, combining this and that. Why do you still need one of these? Because she wants to maintain. She wants to treat her muscle. She wants to come back once every 3 months to look after investment. We're not doing the M8 each time. That would be inhuman. Now, how do you get away with an M8 on the body? Well, 3 options. Number 1, topical, doesn't work so well. Nitrous oxide, that works great, but you got to have regulatory approval for nitrous oxide. Or something I call mesocaine, where we take the mesorem from Germany, which is a mesotherapy apparatus. We drop very light dilute lidocaine. My nurses or estheticians do this and go and infiltrate. It doesn't take long to do that at all, and it works beautifully. So here's a gal with the one and done. We do treat her upper and lower abdomen with aggressive settings, multiple pass. She has her Transform, and we see her 6 weeks later. That's a tremendous improvement. Nothing else does that. Again, nice improvement, hips and abdomen. Here's a lady who did one and done and came back week 2, 3, 4, and 5 because she wanted to continue to tighten her skin. Again, that's a very nice improvement. This is from another clinic where they treated with the Morpheus and the Transform. Again, I can't even treat over the mediastinum with my M-skull because we're worried about the lung. I get it. But if you want to treat that bra line, you're going to have a technology that's subcutaneous. And again, this is the kind of result I wouldn't show patients because it's pretty good for an older lady in her late 60s. That's with the Morpheus 8 and the Transform, and then coming week 2, 3, 4, or 5 for the Transform only. 6-week program. And again, nice outcome on bra lines. And again, I couldn't treat that with an M-Sculpt Neo because of the mediastinal risk of deeply penetrating microwave. So this has been a very successful launch for the company, the Evolve. Of course, 70% of everything we're remodeling and shaping is the face. And so I thought I'd finish with this, that patient, thank God she comes to me with my face tat, I can get that. But what if she wanted something completely non-invasive? What would I offer her? I would offer this, a hands-free plus or minus the M8. So the Evoque's been quite popular with hundreds of systems sold in the US because it is a hands-free option for true skin and fat. Remember, the Evoque also comes with some fat modeling. And it's basically a lower face and jawline and a submenum. We treat for 45 minutes in thicker women where we want some fat and skin, and for about 25 minutes in women where it's just skin. That's what it looks like for the lower face and jawline. The hockey stick is nasolabial fold, labiomental fold, and mandible. There's the nasolabial, labiomental, and mandibular border, and the submental applicator. Very comfortable, and it works, but it's modest. It works, but it's modest. However, same thermal endpoints. Each complex measures 1,000 times a second contact, impedance, and temperature, and cuts off around that endpoint. Nice cutaneous control, kinetic energy, intramolecular motion, and heat. And we know that we get collagen, elastin, and ground substances, and it works. Now the problem is you've got to select your patients and apply the right time, because some thinner patients, they want all the fat they can keep, and this will kill fat. So we turn the treatment off at 25 minutes, do once a week for 6 weeks for thinner patients. If over here you have women that have a lot of jowls and a neck, then it's 45 minutes because we will kill some fat. And we can shrink 6 or 7 HCCs after 6 treatments. And so this is a thinner patient, once a week for 6 weeks, a nice improvement in her jowl and her labiomental fold. Here's the thicker patient. That would be 45 minutes once a week for 6 weeks with a nice improvement in NLF and her jawline. This is a thicker patient from, actually this should, yes, before and after, nice improvement. Now here's the danger of a thin patient who is treated, this is not my patient, a little too long, and you end up, now she might like that at 22, but she ain't gonna like that at 40, 45. She's gonna be looking for someone to fat graft what was melted in her 20s. So this technology works, you just gotta follow the protocol, and you can get some nice improvement. She got good tightening, but a little bit too much in the buccal space, I think, was removed. And just like the Evoke comes with a one and done option. This lady had a fairly aggressive, again, Asian skin type, so Morpheus is going to be a safer technology than a non-epidermal dermal protection technology. We treated her entire mid-face and her neck. She did the submenum and the jawline and came back in 6 weeks. Nice improvement. This lady did the program 2, which was the M8 and the Evoke, and came back week 2, 3, 4, and 5 for more Evoke treatments. Nice improvement in jawline and face. And again, all of these things I'm talking about are supported by the books. The Inmode book has the Transform, the new one, and the Evoke. And then Injectable Facial Shaping has a lot of the injectable acute tactics and strategies. Again, all supported by the video network. And so I was asked to talk a bit about the company, the vision, the non-excisional market. We started with Body Tight, then we came back to Face Tight, then we came out the AccuTight and finished with the Morpheus. And now I think you get an appreciation. You may never do AccuTight, but you can understand how can a company control temperature on a hands-free where skin is one temperature, fat's another temperature, and you can hypertrophy muscle all in one applicator because they know how to control directionally and in depth temperature. And when you can do that, every hypothermia option is now a potential. Thank you very much for your attention. It's so nice to be back in Thailand. Thank you.